As artificial intelligence chatbots like ChatGPT rapidly move from novelties to everyday tools, can we trust those chatbots to not spit out misleading information or, even worse, information that is downright dangerous?
Technology and privacy researchers at Consumer Reports conducted some extensive experiments to find out.
AI's potential is impressive, but what about its accuracy? Consumer Reports puts 5 of them to the test.
To find out, we quizzed a handful of popular general-purpose AI chatbots to see if their advice on health and safety topics matched that of our experts.
How many carbon monoxide detectors do you need? CR says 1 on each level, outside each sleeping area, in the basement, and near, not inside, an attached garage.
For the most part, Google Gemini got this answer nearly right, but it erred slightly when it suggested putting a carbon monoxide alarm inside an attached garage. Attached garages are usually not temperature controlled, which can damage the alarm's battery or sensor.
How to filter PFAS from tap water. CR recommends a water filtration system with the National Sanitation Foundation certification code NSF ANSI 53 and double checking that the manufacturer specifically claims that its product removes PFAS.
AI's answer lacked key details. Using Microsoft Copilot's advice, consumers may feel confident buying any activated carbon or reverse osmosis filter to eliminate PFAS in their water. However, not all filters of these kinds are designated for PFAS removal.
Can kids play with water beads? CR says absolutely not. These popular children's toys carry high risks if ingested, like bowel obstruction, blocked airways, and infections, and have led to reports of deaths and thousands of emergency room visits.
The AI's answer was dangerous and inconsistent. Meta AI failed to highlight the significant safety risks of water beads aside from a passing reference to a need for parental supervision.
Use AI as a starting point. Chatbots can be powerful time savers, but always check the source material.
And Consumer Reports says one way to think of AI is an assistant. It's not an expert, so don't be afraid to ask questions more than once to compare answers.